Hello, this is Bruno Bianchi Sarcone, and this is the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa webinar. Today is Thursday, October 30th, 2025. And a little bit about Spainguru. Our objective is facilitating the relocation process for English-speaking foreigners to Spain. Since 2014, you can find great reviews on Trustpilot and on Google, so you're in very good hands. You can use spainguru.es for free. I have a weekly newsletter that I send every Monday where I feature the top discussions on social media, investigation blog posts, most watched video of the week, and much more. A YouTube channel with more than 7,350 subscribers with more than 1,000 videos, among them many about the digital nomad visa, and a blog with more than 2,000 articles. There's a huge community via Facebook groups with an aggregated total of 150,000 members, from which the most relevant group for you is Spanish Digital Nomad Visa with nearly 19,000 members that I happily recommend you joining today. There's the link, facebook.com/group/Spanish Digital Nomad Visa. So very easy to find, almost 19,000 members as of today. And of course, you can use Spainguru for free. But if you like to go with professional help, you can find immigration experts who are deep knowledgeable about the digital nomad visa process. You can find them on spainguru.es on the services page, just going on the top of the menu. And tax advisors. It's very important to have at least consultations with immigration experts and with tax advisors when you are making the decision of moving to Spain. Those at the very least, I think they are almost necessary. It's very necessary to go with information so you don't get unwanted surprises later on, especially if you're moving with the digital nomad visa. I would say that most of people go with legal help compared to other Spanish visas. This visa is a bit complicated, a bit complex, so most people will go with professional help and also tax advice. And then you can find other services that could be beneficial for you, like financial planning. If you are required to have a compliant health insurance, you can find it on spainguru.es, medical certificate, sworn translation, so recommended sworn translators that you will need for sure for the process, apostille services in the US and the UK. These are private services that can get you the apostilles in very short time compared to the, let's say, cheap official way. And then you can find bank accounts, money transfer services, mortgages, property rentals, and much more. Moving companies, shipping companies, a lot of stuff there on spainguru.es, which I have personally vetted over the years. So really interesting. And for tax advice, a lot of people ask me, like, what is the difference between a tax advisor, a tax accountant, or gestor, okay, and financial planners? Okay, these three people complement each other. So tax advice are experts, who can understand your specific circumstances, especially if you're coming from the US or the UK or Canada and Australia. The tax advisors that I recommend are very used to deal with people coming from these other jurisdictions. So they can give you the best advice for your situation, your actual or current situation and future situation, and that they know the digital nomad visa details, okay, or procedures, so they can give you advice. So these are great to consult with, okay, so that you can ask all the questions so that you get your setup correctly. Then once you have your setup, it is probably more affordable, cheaper. For example, if you need to become an autonomo, to have a tax accountant or gestor who is used to this figure, okay, and to file taxes recurrently, right? Every quarter, every year, or if you receive a notification from the tax authorities, they can answer it, okay? So those are tax accountants or gestores, okay? And financial planners are a bit different. If you want to look at your net worth or your wealth, okay, and you want to know the best way to structure your move to Spain, in terms of where you hold your money, where you have your investments, etc., your situation as a whole, okay, then financial planners can help you maintain or even grow your wealth over time, right? So those are also interesting to contact with, okay? And if you're interested in Beckham law, also have experts in Beckham law. All my tax advisors know about the Beckham law, but there's also consultations specifically about the Beckham law. So all that you can find on spainguru.es. The objectives of this webinar is that we're going to talk about the key changes of this visa in 2025, step-by-step requirements, how to meet them, which documentations you need to submit and how to prepare it. And we're going to talk about taxes, social security contributions, renewal process and what's changed since last year, and how to avoid common mistakes and delays. Now, let's talk first about some common terminology we're going to use in this webinar. First, UGE, Unidad de Grandes Empresas. This is the government unit that processes the digital nomad visa. The apostille. The apostille is a way to legalize your foreign documents so that Spanish authorities consider them legal, okay, for the Spanish process of obtaining a Spanish visa, okay? There is a convention with many countries, more than 100 countries, okay, that use this type of legalization called apostille. Then sworn translation or sworn translator or traductor jurado. This is a special type of translator that is officially appointed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Spain, okay? They have a legal signature that is an electronic signature, so you don't need to send physical papers to them. Everything can be done by email. You send them the scans of your documents and they send you back a digital copy of those documents with the stamp on it, and that you print it out if you want to print it out, or you just send that digital version as part of your file. Okay, so sworn translators, you can also find them on spainguru.es. Then autónomo. Autónomo is like 1099 or freelancer contractor figure in Spain. You call it autónomo. This type of figure, or let's say, is how the Spanish tax authorities and the Social Security call the contractors or freelancers. Yes. Then certificate of coverage or A1 form. Yes, A1 form is for countries of European Union, are also the UK that inherited the A1 form. The certificate of coverage or A1 form prove that you're paying Social Security in your home countries, and therefore you don't need to pay Social Security in Spain. The padrón or empadronamiento. This is a proof of address issued by the city hall of the city where you live. So you can obtain this empadronamiento, okay, or you can, let's say, apply for it using a rental contract. Usually has to be longer than 6 months. You show your ID, you show your visa status, and then you obtain this paper that you can use as proof of address, usually valid for 3 months. Then there is the TIE, Tarjeta de Identidad Extranjero, which is different from the NIE, okay? The TIE card is a plastic card that has your face, your photo, has your NIE number. This is the number of foreigner, okay? The foreigner number that authorities will issue for you. It will state your immigration status, okay? The type of residency that you have, whether you have work permission or not, okay? So this is the plastic card that you obtain at a national police station or foreign office, okay, where you go and you put your fingerprints and they give you the plastic card, okay? That doesn't happen in the same moment. You have to wait a few days, but that's the TIE card, which is different from the NIE, which is just a number, the number that will that you will use always to identify yourself against Spanish authorities. Now let's talk about the updates of 2025 compared to 2024. W2 employees now are digital nomad visa eligible, okay? They have to obtain a certificate of coverage from American authorities, okay? And you do this with your company that you're working for. The company has to start the process, and then you finish it and you obtain the certificate of coverage, and now that certificate of coverage is being accepted by Spanish authorities. Therefore, W2 employees are being accepted now, okay? Who may not qualify? Self-employed or S-Corp owners often don't meet the Social Security's US-based business criteria, or owning more than 25% of a company can trigger legal or tax issues in Spain. And this is a little process on how to obtain the certificate of coverage from the US, but we will not stop here. Remember that I'm recording this and I will send you the recording to your emails later on. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like it, comment in which phase of this process you are, or anything you would like to ask, please comment on the video, and of course, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's talk about more changes. Okay, what's different now? More documents now require apostilles, especially company certificates. There are stricter checks for business owners to prove that there's real company activity, and professional experience must be now backed by official evidence. We're going to go deeper into this later on. Also, something important, because many people think that if you apply for a digital nomad visa, you will for sure benefit from a special tax regime allowing you to pay just 24% tax rate. This is called the Beckham law, okay? But it's important to understand that if you move as a contractor, you're likely not going to be eligible for this special regime. Only if you move as an employee, there's potential eligibility, right? Then other things to have in mind is that UGE decisions can be quite inconsistent, so be ready for that. And renewals now are a bit strict, more strict, and are now treated nearly the same as new applications, okay? So you have to be quite organized for this and prepare the documentations in advance so that you can renew smoothly. Let's talk about apostilles and legalizations. Before, only a few documents needed apostille. Now, the company registration certificates must be apostilled. Tax or social security reports used as proof, work proof, require also an apostille. And this is not new. Marriage, birth certificates, or civil partnership certificates, if applicable, that is, if you're moving with dependents, need apostilles, okay? Sworn translations as well. Documents from outside of Spain must be legalized or apostilled, okay? And this is, as I said, there is a convention with many countries that are under the Hague Apostille Convention, but some countries, for example, the United Emirates, are not part of this convention, so you need to legalize with different process. You will get different type of legalization from their own authorities, not from, not using apostille, sorry. Translations must be official, using sworn translators when not in Spanish. Not all the documents require sworn translations, but official certificates do, okay? And everything that is apostille needs a sworn translation, okay? So be careful with all this. It's becoming a little bit stricter or more scrutiny. Right, let's see if I can move to the next slide. Talking about extra scrutiny, there is more if you are business owner. So expect more questions and documentation. Now, the authorities will require proof that your company is active and legitimate. So people in the past have used off-the-shelf or inactive companies to apply for this visa, but now these are likely to be rejected. So you will need to submit company tax returns, invoices and contracts, proof of business expenses or investment, evidence of clients and services delivered. They want to see that this company is real and active and operating, not a zombie company. If your company has your name or is family owned, more scrutiny. And for small self-owned companies, provide proof of ownership, activity, and client relationships. So expect more documents if you're applying as a business owner with the UGE. Now, when you're proving work experience, and as you know, there's two ways to apply for this visa, either with studies, okay, relevant studies, or with relevant experience of at least 3 years, right? So if you're applying with work experience, now a detailed letter from former employers or clients must outline your role, responsibilities, and date. And now, depending on the type of application or that you are submitting, depending on how you are applying as an employee or as a 1099, okay, to become an autonomous later on, depending on that, you will need to show official documentation that supports your case, like social security records, for example, okay, for example, HMRC records, social security 750 for the US, or that detailed report from your current or past companies, 1099 forms, etc. Okay, so tax documents, as we mentioned, 1099s, P60s for the UK, self-employment pages, and invoices and bank statements tied to your freelance work. So everything has to match, okay, and also match your CV or curriculum vitae to your current job role. Okay, so that's important that you back all your experience with official documentation, and this official documentation to be legalized accordingly and sworn translated, right? We mentioned that the Beckham law, it was sold at the beginning of this visa that everyone was going to benefit from this special tax regime, the Beckham law. But it's actually the employees who move to Spain who are eligible for this special tax regime. Now, something you must know is that if you're making less than 55,000 euros of taxable income per year, it might be more beneficial for you to apply for the ordinary regime or general regime, okay, like anyone else, because there is additional tax and administrative burden. Let's say if you apply for the Beckham law, and there are no certain allowances or certain deductions that you can have, that unfortunately, like if you make less than this amount of money, it makes sense just to go for the general tax regime. Okay, if you ask a tax advisor, that's what they will generally tell you. Okay, and also if you own your own company, potentially you will not be eligible for this type of regime. Okay, so that's important. Now, if you move to Spain as a self-employed, okay, you will not be eligible for this regime, and you will also have to pay social security contributions. So we'll have to budget also accordingly. Okay, so if you read headlines about paying just 15% tax or 24% flat rate tax, okay, just be careful, because first check if you're eligible for a special tax regime. Certainly 15%, that won't happen, okay, but 24% only for employees. So I hope that is absolutely clear. Now, we mentioned that UGE had unpredictable decisions. That happens all the time, okay? And there's also how lucky you are who is reviewing your case. Yes, there are different interpretations for the same things. So you have to plan, to apply early, during the first 90 days in Spain that you have the permit to stay in Spain, the Schengen rules. Okay, so the faster that you apply, the faster you will get a decision, and the faster you'll have the possibility, or the more days left you will have to reapply, for example, if a rejection happened. Okay, that happened even with strong applications. Okay, and it is proven now that appealing a decision is a very long period. It is more expensive also, and it takes weeks, if not months, okay, to get a decision for an appeal. So reapplying is often much better. Okay, and remember also the calendar also has weight in the way that your visa application is decided. Before holidays, during holidays time, that is August, okay, end of July, August, and Christmas times, they tend to be stricter or rushed because there is less staff reviewing applications, so there's less people for the same amount of paperwork, and this is what experts observe. Now let's go into, those were the updates. Now let's talk about the general, let's say, conditions or the general description of this visa. Okay, the digital nomad visa. Core eligibility criteria for the DNV, first of all, financial thresholds. You must earn at least 2,600 euros, okay? Many people talk about 2,760 euros per month, okay? But many lawyers, expert in these visas, they have gotten approval, so 2,600 euros before tax and expenses, okay? And why is this threshold? Because this threshold is based on the minimum salary in Spain, but some people calculate the monthly average of 12 payments versus some people calculate the monthly salary in 14 payments. That's why the 2,763 per month, okay, threshold that some people talk about, right? And this is 200% of the minimum salary. If you're moving with your couple, the couple is 75%, right? So it moves, the financial threshold goes to 3,400 euros, okay, for 14 pays. And if you're moving with more dependents, it's 25% each dependent, okay? And this is how the threshold moves up. So the income must be active income and remote for non-Spanish companies or clients. Maximum 20% can come from Spanish clients, maximum. Doesn't mean that you have to have, it can be 100% non-Spanish customers, okay? Either you need to prove that you have a relevant university degree, or at least 3 years of relevant professional experience, okay? Plus a clean criminal record for the past 5 years. So if you were living in different areas, you will also have to provide criminal records from those areas. You have to prove that your employer or clients have existed for at least 1 year, and confirm that your work is done remotely using digital tools. So not all types of works would comply with these requirements. The amounts are gross before taxes or expenses, and if you are self-employed, income must be shown before deducting costs. Okay, so gross. Savings may help support your case, but they cannot replace consistent income. Okay, and there's no rule. Okay, this is not part of the regulations or the law. How much percentage can be savings? Okay, some depending who you ask, they will tell you, well, maximum 10%, maximum 20% of the whole application. Okay, but if you're moving with family, that percentage tends to be higher. Okay, they're more acceptant of using savings if you're moving with more tenants, right? Income must be documented through contracts, payslips, invoices, and bank statements. And as we said, 20% maximum can come from Spain. If you're moving with dependents, they get work permits, okay, and they can work in Spain, in fact. So 100% of their income can come from Spain, the dependents, but the main applicant, maximum 20%, and all remote. Let's talk about the checklist for your application. You will need a signed letter from your employer or main client confirming your role, your job title, your job description, your pay in euros, remote work authorization in Spain, and confirmation of the arrangement is long-term. Your contract ideally should be without a fixed end date, because if you're applying from Spain, you can get the maximum time for this residency, which is 3 years, okay? But if your contract is just 1 year, they will give it 1 year. The last 3 months of stamped and or signed personal bank statements showing income, last 3 months of payslips or invoices, company certificate with apostille proving that your employer or client has existed for at least 1 year, proof of qualifications or 3+ years of relevant experience, criminal background check, and signed declaration. The signed declaration is that you haven't committed any crime during the time in between your police checks cover and the application time. Private health insurance in some cases, if you're paying Social Security either in your home country or in Spain, you don't need technically to apply for this visa, a private health insurance, okay? But if you're, in any case, you're not paying Social Security, you will need a private health insurance for those situations, which tend to be a minimum situations for this visa. Then passport, application form, payment received, and a photo. And each document will need to be sworn translated. I'm talking about official certificates and apostilles when applicable, okay, or legalized when they're not part of the Hague Convention when required. If you apply as an employee, this is W-2 in the States, okay, you will need a certificate of coverage or A1 certificate from the UK. And right now, really, employees from the UK and the US are the ones who are being accepted by the authorities, because only these 2 types of certificate of coverage are being accepted, okay? I don't know about Canadian or Australian employees or other countries. Usually, they are not accepting other types of certificates, okay? European Union employees, of course, if you're a European Union passport holder, this visa is not for you. But if you are a non-European passport holder working for another company in the European Union, you can provide the A1 certificate, okay? For example, if you're working in Germany as an American, right? This would be, of course, accepted. So A1 and certificate of coverage from the States are the one accepted right now. For this, your employer must confirm your remote status and your job duties. W-2 form can support your income, but it's not enough by itself. You'll need this certificate of coverage to support that you are paying Social Security in your home country. Without it, then Spain gives you 2 options. Either your company abroad sets up a company in Spain and pays Social Security for Spain from within Spain, and you're an employee from abroad, but paying Social Security within Spain, or you had to turn into an autónomo, okay, or contractor or freelance. Yes. And then some people report, some experts who are, applying for this visa very often, they said that it's helpful to provide a signed letter confirming that you have no impact in Spain's labor market, just to make it even easier for the officer to approve you. Now, if some people are in the situation that they can apply for this visa, being an employee or being a self-employed, and the truth is that there are advantages and cons in both situations. Okay, here's a table that compares the different things that you can have into account for both situations. If you have this versatility, not everyone can. Okay, for the lucky ones who can choose both of them, here's the comparison. Okay, as you can see, it's very long. You can watch the video recording later on to see this comparison. Okay, but remember, as an employee, you could be eligible for Beckham Law. Okay, but you have to provide a certificate of coverage, versus if you go as a contractor, probably you're not going to be eligible for Beckham Law. Okay, but it's much, let's say, faster to apply as a contractor, as an autonomo. Okay, but probably the taxation is a little bit worse. Okay, but it's not only those things to have in mind. As you can see, there are several things that you can compare. Yes, and this is the different pathways to obtain the certificate of coverages. Okay, in the US, in Canada, EU, UK, right? And also something to have in mind. Before, we mentioned that if you apply from Spain, if you provide a contract that is indefinite, okay, it doesn't have an end date, it's great, because if you get your visa, then they can give it to you for the maximum 3 years. And this is the same applies for the certificate of coverage. If your certificate of coverage, or A1, is for 2 years, the maximum that your visa will be granted should be 2 years. Okay, if it's only 1 year, it's going to be 1 year, right? So be careful with that, because sometimes I've seen in the group that there are, let's say, some human mistakes. They give you the visa for 3 years, but your certificate of coverage ends before 2 years, maybe, right? And basically, it's your responsibility to have a legal, let's say, residency when your certificate of coverage ends. Okay, do not have a gap. So be careful with that, because those things happen. So consider it like you have to have a different pathway to continue. Now, employers paying Social Security. We mentioned that there are two ways. If you can't get a certificate of coverage, maybe your company can open a subsidiary in Spain and pay Social Security in Spain. Is that viable? The honest truth is that not many companies do it, okay, because it is expensive, right? And it is quite complex, and many companies don't want to do it. Okay, so some applicants will switch to self-employed status to avoid this requirement entirely, but that will have, of course, strong impact in the ways things are done for the applications, post-application, and also for your taxes later on. And if you go self-employed, this is, of course, there are timings on how and when you register as self-employed in Spain, right? So the law says, or the rule says, that you need to get registered as soon as possible, okay? But of course, it will depend whether you obtain your digital nomad visa from abroad versus if you got it in Spain, right? If you got it from abroad and you move to Spain already with an approved digital nomad visa, then you have to register as autónomo as soon as possible, okay? Now, if you move to Spain as a tourist, you apply for the visa, you can't get registered as autónomo before you obtain your visa, okay? And something important, from Spain, the day in which your visa is granted is the day that your residency starts, okay? After you get your residency approved, then you register as autónomo, okay? And if you move with dependents, your dependents can be added, but they should be added after you are registered as autónomo, okay? Now, when you register as autónomo, remember that after that, you will have to start filing regular tax declarations on a quarterly basis for income and for VAT and potentially other things, and also annually, okay? So you have to have your setup with your gestor or tax accountant correctly. And in my opinion, I'm a Spanish speaker. I've been living here more than 20 years. I'm originally from Argentina. I got my Spanish citizenship now, and I am an autónomo, okay? And I have companies and everything. I'm telling you, I don't recommend you going solo in your filings. Please get a tax accountant to give you the alta, darte de alta, so to start your autónomo, okay, to file your initial filing, okay, and check your filings on a quarterly basis, because it's like Chinese, okay? It's so complex. It takes so much time. And I did it for a full year by myself, and I made so many mistakes. And when I went with my tax advisor was like just fixing everything that I did. So really, like that's my experience. Of course, if you work with finances and everything, I'm sure you're more knowledgeable about all this. But in my experience, it is not worth my time, and just pay and someone else does it for you.
Just a quick moment. Over 60% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. That's a lot of people getting value without hitting that button. If my videos have helped you understand Spain's immigration process, visas, or life here even just once, please subscribe now. I'm working hard to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2025, and your click truly makes a difference. Thanks so much. Now, let's keep going.
Now, timing matters. We talked already about the timing. So we already mentioned all this, okay, that it is in the slide. I'm just checking that I didn't miss anything, okay? And yes, of course, once you are autonomo, the expenses will include not only your tax filings, that if you do it with a professional will be accounting fees, of course, that you have to account in your budget, okay? But also the monthly social security contributions that start at around 80, 90 euros for the first year, usually go to 300 euros on the second year, and then potentially they can change automatically because now the government wants to make it so that the contributions are automatic. Before, let's say that you could choose how much to contribute because you wanted to get a higher pension or a higher parental leave if you're going to have kids, whatever, so you pay more so you get more later on. But now that will be automatic according to the level of earnings that you have, that you are declaring, right? So yes, very important question here. Do I need to have a TIE card to register as autónomo, or can I register directly after the digital nomad visa approval? Okay. You don't need to have a TIE card to register as autónomo. In fact, it usually takes many weeks, even months, to obtain an appointment to get your residency card. So you shouldn't even wait. You can register as autónomo without having the TIE card. Okay. But many gestores who don't know about the digital nomad visa will tell you, oh, no, you need to wait to have your residency card. And once you have your TIE card, then we can do your autónomo. That's actually very risky, very bad, because you are supposed to register as autónomo as soon as possible. Okay. So be careful with that. Always talk with knowledgeable gestores that you can find on spainguru.es. Okay. And I have an article about this. Can criminal record affect your application? Yes. Yes, of course. Okay. If you have records, depending how serious they are and the type of records, or if they are repeated offenses, it could be a straight denial. Okay. And even minor offenses can trigger delays and rejections. Okay. So they will really scrutinize your police checks. But if you have, older or minor infractions, maybe they are overlooked. Okay. So you will also sign a declaration confirming that you don't have any pending criminal charges. Okay. And this is an official document that always will need to be apostilled or legalized, and always from translated to Spanish. Remember, there's a Q&A session at the end. You can ask your questions in the chat box in the bottom right corner of your screen. Okay, and I will try to answer those questions at the end after this presentation. And if you have to leave earlier for any reason, you can always leave a review on Trustpilot. There's a button there on the top, green bar, red button, will redirect you to Trustpilot. If you think the information I'm sharing with you today, 30th of October, 2025, and you're learning something new, please go ahead and leave a review on Trustpilot. It really helps me and motivates me, and I will be sending great vibes for your digital nomad visa application. Now let's continue. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel and comment any questions that you have about this visa. Please let me know. I will do my best to answer you. Do you need a degree? Alternatives that work. Okay, so there's different options. We said option 1, a university degree. Okay, or option 2, at least 3 years of professional experience. For the university degree, option 1 has to be a university diploma in a relevant field, must be legalized and officially translated. Degrees must be at graduate or postgraduate levels from recognized institutions and related to your current job role. And options 2 is at least 3 years of professional experience directly related to the remote work you will be doing in Spain or from Spain, and must be supported with documents such as employer or client letters, social security or tax reports, invoices, contracts, and proof of services delivered. As we mentioned, these are updates from 2025 that they go a little bit deeper into investigating all this information. How you prove freelance and or contract experience. If you're applying as a freelance or contractor, you'll need to prove it by submitting a detailed CV aligned with your application. Must be translated, but can be just normal translation from Google or ChatGPT. Of course, make it, check it out. The translation must be still good, even if it's not sworn translation. Include client letters confirming work history, scope, and timelines. Provide official documents such as social security records, tax filings, invoices, and proof of payments. Okay, so depending where you're applying from, you will find, let's say, the type of documents to make this look official. And of course, if you're organized, try to organize the documents either by client or by years, for clarity, and when you submit the letter, try to explain the situation. Okay, it's just to make it easier for the officer reviewing your case. And it's important that everything is consistent, that everything matches, right? So that the job that you're doing now relates directly to the experience that you are proving. Okay, so that's important, that everything is tied up and matches. Now let's talk about bringing family. Okay, spouses and partners. Yes, you can do it, actually. And some of the things that changed for other visas, for example, is that you cannot bring adult children or dependents anymore, the case of non-lucrative visa. But since the digital nomad visa goes via another law, okay, the Ley de Emprendedores, is different, and this stays the same, and you can bring many kinds of dependents, and that's why this visa is pretty cool too. So you can include spouse or legally registered partner, children under 18 and also over 18 with certain exceptions, but you can. Adult children and parents in specific dependent situations. And if you include your partner or spouse, you must provide marriage or civil partnership certificate, always apostille and sworn translated, if not in Spanish. Proof of shared finances or cohabitation. If you are a married couple, okay, they will consider you stable partners. Okay, so if you don't have, let's say, civil partnership certificate, you can still make the case that you are a stable couple, okay, by proving that you have cohabitated for at least 1 year or you have children in common. Okay, this is strong cases, right? And you have to provide documents proving that, okay, such as lease agreements, joint bills, shared bank accounts, etc., right? To make the case you are really a stable couple, okay? And so but this is up to the official checking your case to decide whether you're a couple or not, okay? So best if you show certificates. Now, bringing children, adult dependents on elderly parents. For minor children, you will need birth certificates required and proof of financial support. And it is helpful, school plans for Spain. Adult children, so that is children that are older than 18 years old, but under 26. You must show full-time studies, financial dependence, proof of living with parents, and helpful a certificate of single status so that you prove that they're part of the same family unit, okay? And if they are adult children over 26, this is only allowed if they're medically incapably dependent, and you have to provide official incapacity documentation. For adopted children, a court ruling confirming legal guardianship or adoption, and for parents or in-laws, you must prove that there is a real and stable financial or physical dependence, such as full support via bank transfers. So you have to prove that there are bank wire transfers to those dependent elders. Okay, it's not enough by saying like, yes, this person depends on me, that's it. No, you need to show the money movements, okay, that support this case, right? Or medical dependency. So everything, all these cases will be assessed individually, okay? And yes, of course, remember that for each dependent that you add to your filing, the financial threshold goes potentially up. Yes, we saw the chart here for 4 dependents that will go for 2,600 or 763 to 4,500 euros approximately, okay? All right, let's move to the next one. If family members apply later, not with the main applicant, Extra documentation will be required, and if you're applying as a self-employed, you must be fully registered as autonomous before they can apply, and this can take some time. I think I mentioned it before. Do you need private health insurance? Let's talk on a case by case. Okay, not everyone needs private coverage to comply with the requirements of this visa. Okay, if you are covered by a valid A1 or certificate of coverage certificate, insurance is not required. If you register as self-employed in Spain, you will automatically be covered by Spanish public healthcare system by the payments of Social Security in Spain. Okay, but if neither of these applies, you'll need private health insurance. Okay, that has no co-payments, no deductibles, offers full coverage in Spain, is valid for the entire duration of your visa, at least 1 year, and is issued by companies who are authorized to operate in Spain. Right. So if you're in this situation, there is something key that you have to have in mind. If you're planning to stay long-term in Spain and go for the long-term residence after 5 years of legal residency in Spain, be careful, because one of the requirements is that you haven't have had a gap in healthcare coverage, okay, compliant healthcare coverage. And some people will get their visas in Spain. As we said, the day that the visa was granted in Spain, your residency starts, but they take a few weeks to get registered as autonomous, and therefore they don't have public healthcare coverage during those weeks. Okay, and then when they will go for the long-term residency, the day that their visa was granted until they got the Social Security approved, that is a public healthcare gap in their application. So when the officers will check it, whether you have a gap in healthcare coverage during those 5 years, they will see that there was a gap, and they won't count those towards the legal residency for the long-term residency. Okay, there are also other requirements like minimum stay. I mean, you can maximum be outside of Spain for 10 months in a 5-year period. Okay, can be up to 12 months if it was for work reasons that you can prove. Okay, but you have also minimum stay requirements, and also an uninterrupted legal residency. Okay, and this is also very, very important, because as we said, for example, you get your A1 coverage for 2 years only, or you have to find a pathway to stay legally resident and not set your clock to 0. Okay, because the legal residency must be uninterrupted if you want to go for the long-term residency after 5 years, right? And you don't want the clock to stop counting and restart it, right? So all these things, like public or like healthcare coverage, no gaps, maximum 10 months in 5 years, okay, total, outside of Spain, minimum stay requirement. And 3, uninterrupted legal residency. Be careful with that. Always work with professionals, immigration experts. You can find them on Spainguru.es to have a perfect, nicely laid out strategy for your long-term objectives in Spain, so that you can get your legal long-term residency smoothly and immediately once those 5 years of legal residency end. Okay, so if you need private health insurance coverage, my best recommendation is to work with Carlos Blanco. He's exclusive agent of Adeslas. Okay, he's not only an exclusive agent that knows everything about health insurance, but also he's an expert immigration lawyer who does digital nomad visa applications, and he can also understand perfectly your use case scenario, yes, of being a digital nomad visa applicant, in order to make sure that everything is compliant for your private health insurance coverage. And Adeslas is the top choice among the private health insurances in Spain, with 30% of the market. And it is a great value for money option, in my humble opinion. So it is free to contact him. You go to Spainguru/health insurance, fill the form, and then he'll send you a non-binding quote. You'll receive a phone call, okay, initial phone call to assess your case, okay, and all this will be for absolutely free. Now, let's talk about more stuff: entry stamps, apostilles, translations, okay? So when you enter Spain, it's important that you have proof that you have entered Spain. So when you enter from outside the Schengen area, I remind you that the Schengen area is a 29 European country group of countries that is internally borderless. Only if you enter from outside this group of countries, you will receive a stamp in your passport. And now, with a recent change, there's going to be a digital system called EES, Entry Exit System, They will scan your face, scan your fingerprints, scan everything from you, and then this will replace the passport stamps. But Europe will know that you entered the Schengen area during a specific time, and it will be easier to track whether you have overstayed or not. But that only works from outside of Schengen. So if you fly from New York to Madrid, you will get that stamp or that scan, okay, and you will have proof of entry. But if you fly from, let's say, New York City to Frankfurt in Germany, and then you spend like 10 days there in Germany traveling, okay, or you go to Oktoberfest, whatever, and then you take an internal flight from Germany to Spain, there will not be passport control, right? Or EES system. There will not be. And you will not have a proof of entry to Spain except for your boarding pass, which can be accepted or not by the police officers, okay? But also people who drive, okay, who go driving from France to Spain, that's even harder because you don't have a boarding pass, nothing. And people show like gas tickets or whatever. So the option is you go to a national police station at the airport or next to the border, and you ask for a declaración de entrada, entry statement. The police station will stamp it, will say, I recognize that this person has entered Spain in a specific date. And that's what you submit as proof of entry, okay? This is only for when you enter from within Schengen, right? We mentioned that for legalization, apostles is the best. Strong translation for official documents. And the CV needs to be translated, but doesn't need to be sworn translated, right? And be meticulous, be careful when you fill your forms. Everything must be filled correctly. And there's many cases that people don't do it. And there's delays and rejections. So pay attention to everything. Now, topping up income with savings. We mentioned that, yes, you can. Nobody knows how much percentage, okay, you can use for as savings. But this can also be helpful or accepted, especially if, in the certain cases in which your income is slightly below the required threshold, maybe 10%, 5%. If you're bringing multiple dependents and if you're self-employed with variable monthly income, okay? But never think that savings can replace or be a majoritarian part of the financial threshold. How do you count these savings? By showing bank statements with your name, fixed term deposits or investment accounts, proof of consistent ownership, and address of these deposits, okay, or investment accounts. And also they need to see that this money is liquid. It is readily available without penalties, okay? So yes, that's important. Liquidity is important. Yes, they want to know that you can access that money immediately if you need it. We mentioned when you have to register for Autónomo. Actually, this slide, I should delete it. This is slide number 44. I say it in every single webinar that I will delete it, but I always forget to do it. But yes, let's move on. The pros and cons of applying from Spain. This visa is great because you can either apply from a Spanish consulate abroad or from within Spain, right? Now, many people cannot enter Spain without a visa. For example, Filipinos. Okay, they need a Schengen visa. So the most common case for Filipinos is applying from a consulate in Philippines, like Manila, right? It's very, very common, right? But for many other nationals like US, UK, Canada, Australia, they can enter Spain without an extra visa. You can stay up to 90 days in a 180 days rolling period in Schengen, okay? So it has benefits, okay, applying from Spain. You don't need to wait in your home country. You can enter Spain as a tourist and apply once you're here with a proof of entry, as we mentioned before. Faster appointment scheduling. You can apply directly online through the UGE portal. You don't need to get an appointment at Spanish consulate, which can be hell. Streamlined process, or more streamlined, okay? Consulate requirements interpretation vary even more than the ones from UGE, much more. Every consulate is its own kingdom or planet. Great control over your move, settle housing, schools, or logistics while you are waiting approval, so you can, overlap things and gain time. Easier family reunification later once you apply from Spain. Once you're approved, family members can join as dependents, respecting the time frames, as we mentioned. An approval with an indefinite contract, it can grant residence for 3 years instead of 1. Whereas if you apply from a Spanish consulate, the maximum is just 1 year regardless. The cons of applying from Spain is that you have a strict 90-day window to do so. The entry proof is required, and visa starts immediately, okay? You cannot choose when your visa starts. And there are some risks if denied. No appeal process within Spain. Okay, there is an appeal, but it is not recommended at all. Okay, it's the best is if you still have Schengen days left, reapply. Okay, and we've seen cases of people who are reapplied without changing a single comma in their filings, and they got approved. Okay, just by what we mentioned, that a different officer checked it and they got approved, right? But of course, if you're reapplying, the best is to reorganize your information, add anything that could be wrong, and of course, increase the chances of being approved. Now, I have asked in the group how many people apply from Spain versus abroad. About 80% apply from Spain because of all these benefits, okay, and because they could. And the timeline or the milestones for applying from Spain, if you could simplify all this, is first, you prepare your documents. That takes you about 3 months. You travel to Spain. You submit your application immediately. Some people, even during the same day that they enter Spain, they apply for it. Okay. You wait for resolution, usually up to 20 business days. Yes, and they're quite strict about this. And you receive your residency. Okay, that can be valid up to 3 years, as we said, in the best of cases. Then you can renew for 2 more years and get the 5 years for your long-term residency, complying with the requirements. Working with individuals. What if your clients are companies? This is absolutely possible. You can apply even if your clients are individuals or sole traders, but the key is to prove that the relationship is stable, long-term, and remote, and you will have to include invoices with client names, proof of regular payments, written confirmation from the client about the work you do. And even if you have multiple smaller clients, if you show consistent income across several months, that's great. And avoid contracts that suggest that you're doing work for Spanish-based individuals unless clearly allowed, the 20% rule. Okay, if you're working for NGOs, these are acceptable, the contracts with them, if they operate like a company, showing consistent activity, at least 1 year, legal status, and financial transactions. Let's talk about the TA appointments. Okay, now that you already, everything is set up, you got your approval. Now you have to go for your TA card. What do? Expect delays, okay? And especially Valencia, for example, now is the mecca for digital nomads in Spain, I could say, together with Malaga, Madrid, and Barcelona. But Valencia seems to be in the top. But it's taking a long time. People are taking like months to get appointments in the Valencia province. But the legal appointments, the lack of appointments don't stop your legal status, okay? Your visa was granted, you are a resident, but you just don't have the plastic to prove it, okay? You have the resolution, and that is enough, in fact, okay? But this can be a little bit of friction, right? For certain processes, but remember, it's not that, you're not a resident until you get your TA card. You got it from the resolution of your visa grant, okay, or from the start date of your visa granting if you got it from outside of Spain. What you can do, people check appointments availability daily, especially early mornings, even in the middle of the night. Be flexible with nearby towns or smaller cities police stations within the same province. You can potentially get appointments there. Use a relocation expert or gestor to book it on your behalf. And also there is a hack, okay, a little hack. Even if you're not living in Madrid or Barcelona, you could potentially do it from there, like taking a train, staying one night in a hotel, and applying the next day. Because you can, if you're applying for this visa, you can get a special UGE appointment in Madrid or Barcelona, but they will not require you to have an empadronamiento. Therefore, you don't need to prove where you're living, and they will still give you your tarjeta de identidad extranjero, your TA card. Okay, this is a hack that I talk about in this video. Okay, how to guide getting your TA hack. Search Spainguru, YouTube, TA hack, etc., and you will get it, or you just scan the code or read the URL below. Otherwise, you have to go through the common pathway to get your TA, which is, you can also find a how-to guide, step-by-step guide about getting your TA, how you get your appointment, what documentation you need to show, etc., etc. And also you can find that on Spainguru.yes, like getting your TA how-to guide. You search that on Google and it will come out. And Spainguru, search for Spainguru always. Now let's talk about taxes and social security. So if you're applying as an autonomo, as we said, you need to pay social security and taxes on a quarterly basis and annual basis. Okay. So for the first year, for social security, you'll be paying about 80 euros or 90 euros. Normally, in most regions, if you after 1 year you can claim to get paid that back. That is called quota cero. Okay, it takes 4 years to process, 4 months to process. All right, but then they will pay you back that 1,000 euros that you paid the first year. Okay, second year they will increase your contributions to typical range around 300 euros. Okay, and then if you increase your income, your base will be increased accordingly. Okay, now what does these contributions include? Access to public healthcare system, subsidized medicines, retirement and disability coverage, parental leave and sickness benefits. But yes, you will have to account this in your budget. But also, what you spend as social security payments, this is an expense that you can deduct from your income taxable income, right? From your income tax. So every month you tell to your gestor, oh, I have paid 300 euros for my social security. So that is an expense that you can deduct. Okay, you don't pay taxes on that, let's say. Now, this is not definitive. This is a negotiation that the government is having with the associations of autonomous, but basically they need to raise the social security contributions. This is already set, okay? And the question is how fast they're going to apply these raises, okay? And the government, they announced 15 days ago huge increases. It was a big scandal. Even people inside the government said like, "Oh, this is inhumane. This will destroy autonomous, etc." And they got back in what they said, and now they're just increasing a little bit, okay, the contributions, but still they will have to increase those contributions in the next 5 years to 2030, if I'm not wrong. The question is how fast they will apply these increases. But yeah, this is something that is going on that you have to have in mind that it's gonna happen, and you have to let's say budget accordingly. That the social security contributions, as of today, they will be increasing in the next years, and soon we will know what the plan will be. But the increases that they announced, they were crazy. Like if you are making over 6,000 euros, your contribution that was 600 euros was going to go to 800 euros monthly. Okay, so yes, the increase was going to be huge, but apparently it's not going to be happening exactly like that. They will increase it, but not as much. So I will keep you posted. I will be following this. Of course, I'm an autonomo, and I will post this on Spainguru and post it also in the Digital Nomad Visa group so that everyone is informed. Remember, there is a progressive tax system for income tax in Spain, okay, and those tax brackets go from 19% to 47%. There is a national proportion and a regional proportion in those percentages, so there are little small variations, okay. But you can see there that, for example, for the fifth tax bracket is 45%. So if you make 60,000 euros or between 60,000 euros and 300,000 euros, you pay 45% income tax. This is a big question. Okay, imagine that you make 100K a year, right? Would I have to pay 45% tax if I make 100K per year? Big question. And the answer is no. Yes, taxes in Spain are high, but not as high, right? But of course, it is easy to think that you will pay 45% if you're making 100K because this falls into this bracket. But the truth is that you will start paying 19% for the first 12,450 euros that you make, 24% for the next 8K, 30% for 15K, 37% for 25K, until you reach those 100K. Okay, that's why it's called progressive. Yes. Therefore, you will end up paying an effective tax rate. This is ballpark figures without deductions, without allowances or anything. Effective tax rate of 36% for 100K taxable income, not 45%. Okay, it's not always that bad. And this is a calculation, rough calculation. If you're making 30K, 24%. For 40K, 26. For 50K, 29. Up to 36 if you're making 100K. This is so you can see how the progressive tax brackets work, because many different taxes in Spain use this system. Okay. Now, if you're an autonomous as well, every quarter you will have to file income tax and VAT at least, and you will advance a 20% tax on your income every quarter. Okay. And then in your annual declaration, you will pay the difference. It will be higher. So you will still have to pay by June 30th the following year of the tax calendar year that you will be paying. Okay. And also there's a VAT annual reporting at the beginning of the year as well. Also, once you become a Spanish tax resident, you will have to declare your overseas assets. This is called the 720 form with the deadline of March 31st. And yes, usually a tax gestor or tax accountant will handle these filings for you, and I highly recommend you using one. So be careful with that. And if you wanna know more about Spanish taxes in general, you can join my free Spanish taxes webinar where I go through all this extensively. Okay, not only about income tax, but also about any other different taxes and more in detail. Now let's talk about renewal. We were saying that now you have to be careful because they treat this as almost as an initial application. So you have to be organized, okay? And remember, depends where you got your visa. You know, maybe it's maximum 1 year. If you got it from Spain with an indefinite contract, maximum 3 years. Will depend also if you got your certificate of coverage for a certain amount of time. Okay, but if it's after 3 years, you can renew it for two more years maximum. Okay, excuse me. Important deadlines. When can you start renewing your visa? Check the expiration date of your TIE card. You can start 60 days before that expiration date and up to 90 days after it. Okay, but don't wait until the last minute. Start 60 days before expiration date, because if anything goes wrong, you still have days left to reapply for the renewal. That's important. Okay, and once you reach your 5 years of legal stay, uninterrupted legal residency, and uninterrupted healthcare coverage, and complying with the maximum time outside of Spain of 10 months in a 5-year period, you will be potentially eligible for the long-term visa, which is much better than having a digital nomad residency, okay, and gives you much more flexibility with less things asked. So yeah, definitely go for it. Now, if you're a dual passport holder and you hold a passport of any of the countries painted in red in that map, your residency requirement, which is usually 10 years to be eligible for Spanish citizenship, goes down to 2. Okay, that is great. And that's even faster than long-term residency in this case. So if you're a holder of, Puerto Rican citizenship or Mexican citizenship or any of those countries, Filipino, after 2 years of legal residency, there's a minimum stay requirement of at least, you cannot be outside of Spain more than 3 months per each of those 2 years before applying for Spanish citizenship. Okay, and you have to be citizen by origin of those countries. You cannot be by naturalization. Okay, so the local laws of the country you're applying with have to consider you to be a citizen by origin, usually because your parents were of that origin or you were born in that country, usually. Okay, but that depends on each of the countries, and Spain will respect that rule to consider you by origin, because Spain only gives you a 2-year fast track if you are by origin. Okay, Article 22nd of the Civil Code of Spain. What's different when you renew your visa? You must still meet all income, work, and legal requirements, and the renewals will require updated income proof for the past 6 to 12 months, updated criminal record certificate from Spain, proof of continued remote work and business activity, confirmation, Spanish address, and up-to-date empadronamiento. This time you need an empadronamiento. And if there are any changes in your status, okay, you changed employer, you were fired, whatever, you must inform UGE within 30 days of any changes. Then, common renewal issues: income drops below required level, freelancers fail to show consistent activity, delays with paperwork or expired documents, new apostle requirements, and gaps in health coverage. Okay. And remember also the, let's say, issues that can have an impact on your long-term residency that we already mentioned before. How to avoid surprises when you go for the renewal: keep your documents organized from day one, that is your income statements, invoices, and client letters, social security payment records if you're self-employed. Monitor your income to ensure you meet the threshold every month. Update your empadronamiento if you move, okay? And that takes time also when you move places. Set reminders to begin the renewal process at least 2 months before expiry or expiration. Gather documents 4 to 3 months before expiration, and get a new background check from Spain with no pending legal issues. This is important. No legal issues. And remember that, as we said before, if your A1 or certificate of coverage ends earlier than your initial visa granting, then there's different pathways. Okay, you could apply for a renewal in your home country that is not always granted, usually not granted. There's other pathways like switching to autónomo, for example, and register with Spanish Social Security, and you have to do it in a way that there is no uninterrupted residency status for the long-term residency later. Or you could potentially convince your employer to register in Spain and start paying Social Security in Spain. That will potentially give you Beckham law eligibility, okay? But is this unlikely? Not always happens, okay? You could also leave Spain temporarily, but that will reset the clock for long-term residency. And consider immigration pathways such as arraigo social or different types of arraigo, even switching to non-lucrative residency, okay? If you have the funds, if you can live in Spain without working in Spain. Work permits, okay? For example, if you get a job offer from a Spanish company or you want to start your business in Spain, okay, these are also pathways to be considered, but of course you need to comply with the requirements. And remember that some UGE renewal rejections have been based on the expiration of the A1 or certificate of coverage, and Spain will expect continuity, so always important to have a strategy, a plan before your visa or your coverage expires. This is very important, and for that, going with legal help is paramount, in my opinion. Remember that if you need legal help, experienced legal help, you can find it on spainguru.es. But not only that, if you need information or community, you can always join my newsletter for free. You can opt out anytime. Watch my YouTube channel, read the blog, join the groups. If you haven't joined the Spanish Digital Nomad Visa Facebook group, please do it today. It is free. You can benefit from others' experiences and also the other webinars, okay? Non-lucrative Spanish taxes, moving to Spain, and much more. And soon, I'm soon releasing a Q&A session in the afternoons also, so that you can ask me anything. On December 10th, actually at 6 p.m., I'm going to be holding it. And as I said, you can contact my personally vetted experts that you can find on spainguru.es. You just go to the top services and you will find them for taxes, for immigration, and much more. And stay in touch. My email is hello@spainguru.es. I always answer my emails. And notice that the content of this webinar is for information purposes only and is not legal advice. The requirements listed here are not official. Please check specific consulate requirements or UGE requirements for this visa. Now let's go to the Q&A session. I can see that there is one question here, but if you have to leave earlier today, you can always leave a review on Trustpilot. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, I will be highly appreciative if you leave a like, and if you subscribe to the channel, or if you want to ask anything, please comment below. Now let's talk. I forgot to go enable the Q&A chat, unfortunately, so now it's too late for me to publish the question. But here it says, is it better to apply from Spain while they're on a tourist visa, having all the documentation all complete, or better to apply beforehand from the US? I guess you asked this before I went through the comparison. I do have a slide talking about that, about the pros and cons of applying from within Spain. Here you have the slide if you want to read it again. Okay, certainly there are pros and cons, but the pros from doing it from Spain are bigger, in my opinion. So if you have the possibility and versatility, consider it doing from Spain, but you have to be organized because, of course, you won't be in the States if you want to gather extra documentation. So go with legal help, in my opinion, and apply the same day even that you enter Spain or the next day, so you have enough time in order to reapply if anything goes wrong. But yeah, definitely going from Spain is what most people do because the advantages are great. Okay, so thank you so much everyone for joining today. That was the only question, and I will be uploading this video to YouTube. Again, have a wonderful week. Write me to my email if you need anything, and yes, see you around. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.